Good morning, folks. Michael Finn here on the banks of the Dodder, just below Rathfarnham Bridge, with the weir in the background of the shot you're looking at now. And I'm with Cory Hanson. Cory is an American who came to Dublin a couple of years ago to live and loves it. But he also loves the River Dodder, and he's recently completed the digitisation of Christopher Moriarty's wonderful book, Down the Dodder. So I'm just going to ask him one question and then I'll let him take it away. So Cory, my question for you is, how does an American from the banks of the Mississippi come to digitise and write a new foreword to Christopher's wonderful book?
I grew up in a town of about 60,000 called Dubuque, Iowa, and the town is right on the banks of the Mississippi as it takes a turn to the east and goes around in Wisconsin and Illinois. But my nearest body of water was actually a small brook called Catfish Creek, and it was about the size of the Dodder in some places, and it was only a few hundred meters from my front door as a boy. So I spent most of my boyhood with my feet, bare feet, in the creek there, chasing after the fish, chasing after the minnows, chasing after the crayfish, although we call them crawdads in the part of the country that I'm from. And I was fortunate to have that so close. It became a really important part of my life, and water in general is just such a draw to me now, and I just became in love with it. And I was lucky in my adult life to live in another city in Iowa with a river close by to me. When I found out I was going to be moving to Dublin, I was a bit nervous because I don't think of major cities as having clean rivers full of life flowing right into the heart of the city. And I was lucky and floored and excited and surprised when I landed in Dublin and discovered there was such a river right here, the Dodder. After a few months here, I got my angling license and I started chasing after the fish that I had seen in the river that I later learned, of course, were the brown trout that so many anglers are always chasing here in the Dodder. And fly angling in the city was just something that I never thought I would see. And I got involved with the Anglers Club, and I asked them if there were any groups that did environmental work here, volunteer work, because I really felt strongly, even before I met some of the other folks who did, that the river did need to be protected and preserved in the city as it is here. They passed me on to Dodder Action. I said I would love to jump in on the cleanups, and the rest was history for them. They mentioned to me after about a year that someone named Chris Moriarty, who I'd never heard of, had written a book called Down the Dodder, which I had never heard of, and that he had gifted us the rights to republish it in ebook form since it had been out of print and difficult to find. And they gave me an estimate that a professional editor had given them, and I said, oh, that's high, but let me look at the book. And I said, that's a fair book, because some of the most difficult things in digitizing books are formatting and photos, and of course Down the Dodder is just rich in all of that extra formatting, which means extra hands-on, careful attention to detail for the editor. But I was very happy to take on the job, and as I worked through it, the more I worked through it, I became more and more attached to it, and the more strongly I believed that it deserved a really definitive treatment for the 21st century, because one of the notable things about that book is that it not only is it a comprehensive reference piece about the river, its history and its stories from the distant mythical past to the present, it was also, because it was getting on in years itself, written in the early 90s, a historical snapshot of what the river looked like on that day, at that time that it was written. So it's a really nice piece of history itself, and I believe someday it will become a primary source that will one day be quoted, as it quotes so many primary sources and letters. So I thought it needed something new to go with the 21st century, to connect it from the early 90s to the 21st century, and I just thought I would write a preface of my own story of meeting the River Dodder as an Iowan from the Mississippi who is familiar with rivers, who's familiar with the wildlife and the plant life that will be on the river in the city. And so I put my piece together, told my story of seeing the Dodder first up in Irishtown and Ringsend, where it's tidal, and there was no river when I first saw there. The tide was all the way out, and that was so novel to me, being from landlocked Iowa. And I met the river again that same day, although I didn't even know it was the same body of water, as laughable as that would be today, at Ball's Bridge, and saw a fly angler on my first day in Dublin, totally lost, had no idea where I was, and I didn't know that it was that same river that I had seen down in the tidal stretch. And I knew then that no matter where I lived in Dublin, that this river would be a part of my life here in Ireland. And I was lucky enough to live in a neighborhood so close to the river, and I spent a pretty good amount of my time that should have been spent doing other things in Ireland on the banks of the river, either angling, walking, or cycling. And so I think that the book really is presented in the best possible form with all of its character intact and the new conveniences that we have now with technology. So I really think such an important work deserved to have it, and I think this edition is exactly that.
Beautiful, Cory. Well done. Thank you.